What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk More Action Golf. I'm your host, Luke, and today we're flipping the script. In this episode, it's all about question and answers. In fact, it's all about all of the questions that you have sent to me via DM or people have asked me while I'm on the golf course. I want to take an opportunity to answer some of these questions for you tonight. Before I get to the questions, I just want to share an update with you guys about my winter golf league that I'm participating in. So last week we played. The week before we came in 1 over par. And last week we did the same thing again. We came in 1 over par and we had a really great game. So Jason and I did our thing. We came through, made sure we really focused. Like last week, my wedges were really working. Like when I say working, anytime that I was short, I pulled out my wedge and it worked really well. There was no issues whatsoever. So I want to continue to work really hard on making sure that my short game is on point, which is the main purpose and the reason why I got into the Winter Golf League. So just to give you a quick update, of course, the league is probably, I think about like 8 weeks. So our goal is to be contenders. That means we got to come in either top 5 or the first one. But I'll keep you all updated on, the progress that I'm making, how well I'm playing, and so on and so forth. So let's get into the questions. Now, keep in mind, some of these questions are questions that people, may have written in the comments. A couple of them are people who DM me, and some of them are questions that people ask me, while I'm playing on the course and help, and I give them answers and they give me the idea to definitely do an episode where I answer some of those questions for everyone to hear. So some of these questions you're going to hear, I've broken them down into different categories, right? So there are questions about my personal journey. There are questions about how I see the game in terms of like how I approach my strategy in terms of the game. There are questions around, when I talk to guests, how I, the conversations. And finally, this is not something that I'm an expert in. In fact, I'm not an expert in any of these things. But sometimes people ask me, like, in terms of like the golf culture, like the growth of the game and so on and so forth. Well, someone asked me about the growth of the game because I definitely have an opinion about TGL and, its future and all that stuff. Not that I'm an analyst or anything, but I just have an opinion and sometimes I share it with people. Anyway, let's get into the questions. Well, the first question is, what inspired you to start Let's Talk More Action Golf podcast? Well, it was a natural progression. When I first started the Instagram page, my goal was to start the Instagram page, then gradually move into podcasting, and eventually my bigger goal was to develop an exchange program where, for example, I had gotten some used golf clubs, tailor-made burners, and then now I got fitted for some Mizuno, and I still have those old golf clubs. And part of my goal is to be able to send those to a new golfer who's just getting into the game. So that was the whole game plan. And the podcast was the second part of my game plan, to be able to talk with people, invite guests, people that I admire, people that I see out there doing their thing that inspires me, invite them to come on the show. So that's the reason why I started the golf podcast. And clearly, I like to talk, as you can tell. So what better way to communicate, to have a conversation with people than to have a podcast? So I hope that satisfies for this question. Next question. How did you get into golf and what keeps you passionate about the game? Oh man, this is a really good one. So I got into golf because I moved to Houston from New York City. And when I moved there, I didn't know anyone. I moved there based on just a connection that I was working with. And they suggested that I come to Houston, during my birthday. So I came to Houston, saw, and I felt with the city immediately. As soon as I landed, I was like, oh, this is my home. And then so when I moved there, I didn't know anyone. And I thought, what better way to create my own little community than to get into golf? Because I'm not going to be playing by myself. So eventually I imagined that I would be playing with other people and we'd form a camaraderie, a bond of brothers, sisters, so on and so forth. So that's how I got into golf. So I decided I wanted to get me clubs. So I got me some old, well, I don't want to say old. Maybe what I really meant to say, I got me some, like off-rack Wilson clubs at a sporting goods store. And then I started playing, and then my wife got me a gift card for lessons. So I got a gift card with 3 lessons, and that's how I got to it. What keeps me passionate is that I feel like the game of golf really aligns with my personality, right? The game of golf is a game of continuous improvement, and my personality lends itself to that, right? I constantly want to get better at anything that I'm doing. Anything that I'm doing, I'm trying to find a way to be better at it. I'm trying to find a way to get feedback. And I think golf, no matter how many times, there's always an opportunity to get better, to improve. And that, for me, keeps me going and keeps me passionate about the game each and every day. Because I have yet to play a game of golf that's similar to the one that I played before. So that's what it is. All right. Oh, this question is really interesting. Someone asked, what's the meaning behind the podcast name and how does it reflect your approach to golf? So the meaning is Let's Talk More Action Golf. It's a play on the word let's talk more action, or the statement let's talk more action. And I thought it really is interesting because I like to talk, but I also like to put actions behind what I talk about. So for example, when I first started playing, I started playing with this guy who was so much better. And I enjoyed that. I find that when I start to play around people who are better than me, who are doing things better than me, it motivates me to keep going, right? So that's the action part. Let's keep it moving. So it's just a play on the statement, or the phrase, let's talk more action golf. So that's where the name come from. And for me, it reflects based on I'm constantly moving. I'm moving all the time. No matter what's going on, I'm always moving. Next question is, what do you hope listeners take away from each episode? My ultimate goal is for anyone who's listening to be able to connect, to see a little bit of themselves in my words, in what I'm saying, and to be able to keep going at this game, to keep creating, reinventing themselves each and every day, because that's what I do. And one of the most important things for me is that I want to bring joy with me onto the course. So whenever I'm playing, for me, it's always an occasion to connect with people. It's always an occasion to bring about joy, whether someone is listening to me, they can feel it, they can sense it, they can, connect with wow, this guy is really enjoying doing this, because I really do. So my goal is to be able to connect with someone, whether they've been playing for a day, 2 days, years, no matter how long they've been playing, but to be able to find joy, to, get peace out of playing golf. Because when you're playing golf, you're outside. Most of the time, the weather's beautiful. And yeah, you may make a bad shot, but you have an opportunity to be in a place where you're breathing good quality air. You're enjoying the moment. So I think, and I hope that's something that's reflected in my voice, in the way that I play the game. All right, next question. how has hosting the podcast changed your perspective on golf? Well, this is something that I'm fighting back against, right? Because when you're hosting a podcast, sometimes I could feel my ego, my pride, making me think like, oh, yeah, you should be commenting on someone else's, game. You should be commenting or providing analysis on someone else's way of doing things. And I really don't want to do that because I understand that the game of golf, in as much as it's technical, but it's also very personal. Someone's swing is just like their fingerprint. It's only for them and no one else. So that has given me an opportunity to really take a step back, right? Trying to kill the ego, my own, urge to say things about other people. Well, except CGL. I don't know why I have a strong opinion of that, but I try to really not bring about too much of my own perspective on things and just give people an opportunity to be themselves. Next question, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned from playing golf? I think the most valuable lesson that I've learned from playing golf is that golf is only as hard or as easy as you make it. And for me, that means if I make a bad shot, well, let me take a step back. I try not to do mulligans when it comes to golf because in life, we seldom get an opportunity for do-over. So one thing that I'm learning is that when you don't take mulligans, you're sending a signal. You're telling your body that, hey, we only have one opportunity, so we have to get it right. And what I'm learning from that is that, it really helps when I'm on the golf course. Because when I don't take mulligan, then I have to play the shot as it lies. So therefore, I'm more likely to be more focused, more in tune, because I don't get to do it again. So it's the same way in life now that I approach life in a way like, oh no, I need to follow up and follow through because I may not to get to do this over. So no matter what the situation, I try to add that aspect to it. Okay, next question is, how do you prepare mentally before stepping onto the course? So there are a couple of things that I do depending on the time that I'm set to play. So generally, before I start playing at home, I wake up, I always go back to the Tiger Woods 2000 PGA. I always go back and watch that. I always go back watching, any of Tiger Woods PGA or, Masters game. I watch that. And I watch it because just to get my mind in the mind frame of like, okay, calm down. It's okay. Even Tiger makes mistakes. Even, the most impressive players whose job it is to hit the ball right, they'll make mistakes. So therefore, I kind of get my expectation in the right place before I play. So mentally, on the way to the golf course, sometimes I may meditate. I may play a song to kind of like calm me down, to relax me. And most of the time, I start to make jokes. Like I got my own mental caddy that I call Kwame. So I'm generally checking in with Kwame, making sure like we're developing a strategy mentally. Like for example, lately before I play, I used to get on the range and hit, use my irons to hit. But now I change it up to where the first place I go to is the putting green. Practice that, and then I do hit my wedges, and that's it. That's how I get ready, to start playing. All right, next question is, what's one common mistake that I make that holds me back? I think one common mistake that I make that holds me back is that a lot of time when I step up to the ball, I can already feel in my body whether this is going to be a good shot or a bad shot. And whenever that I don't listen to that, feeling, it's always a bad outcome. So it holds me back because a lot of time I step up to the ball and I'm like, nah, this is not right. Reset. But I'm like, oh, people are waiting. People are behind me. Oh man. All right, come on, do it. And then I always the outcome is never positive when I don't reset. But when I do reset, it's almost like it's magical. Once I reset, my body's in the right place. It's a great shot no matter what. All right. Next question. If I could only practice one aspect of golf for the next month, what would it be and why? Well, I'm learning that putting is crucial. So over the last 3 weeks, I've been practicing at least 15 minutes every day. Every day, I'm practicing my putting. In fact, over the last 3 weeks, I've practiced putting more than anything else. So I'm putting in hours into putting because a lot of times I get onto the green, right? And I used to 3-putt, 4 putts. And that used to be so frustrating because wait, you hit green in regulation and you still double bogey, you still triple bogey. That used to be a very frustrating part of my game. So putting is essential. And, a lot of people have been telling me, oh man, your putting stroke is so nice and all that stuff. And I want to continue to work on that to where I get it perfectly well. In fact, right now, any putts from 5 feet and lower, I step up to the ball with such confidence that I don't miss it. I don't miss, short putts anymore because I've been practicing that a lot. All right, now let's switch gear. Some of these questions are about guests and conversation. Oh, someone asked, what's been the most surprising insight you've gained from a guest on the podcast? I think one of the most surprising insight, I would say, is when I interviewed Meg the golfer. And I had been thinking about joyful golf, but I didn't, have in terms of a full definition of what that looked like. And then when I interviewed her and what she was describing, her approach to the game, then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what joyful golf is all about, because her approach was, hey, I get an opportunity to be here, to have fun, to enjoy this. There is no reason for me to be upset about it. So I think, for me, that's been really insightful. And that's something that stayed with me, ever since that interview. And I try to practice that every single day when I get on the course. All right, next question. Oh, this is a good one. Who is your dream guest and what would you ask them? I'd say my dream guest for this podcast would be a young woman named, well, at least on Instagram, her name is Lulu Gonzalez. And I appreciate the angle at which she approaches the game. She doesn't take herself seriously. She seems to always be laughing and joking and genuinely really working really hard at her game. And I think maybe what I would ask her is, how does she navigate? Well, she's kind of like a star, right? How does she navigate when she step onto field with professionals, right? Once you start interacting with a professional, how do you not crush under the pressure of knowing this person is a PGA professional and I'm about to interact with them? I think that would be one of my first questions, because I think, the mental pressure of playing with someone of their caliber would be really, really tough. Oh, how do you balance technical golf discussions with storytelling for an engaging podcast? Well, if you've been listening to this podcast, you notice that I generally stay away from anything technical, right? I generally trying to find engaging, getting to really know people really well, right? Because I think while golf is super technical, but it's a very personal game. And getting to know someone, to me, is something that is precious. And I may understand the technicalities of a golf swing and all that stuff, but understanding how someone approach their shot, understanding how someone gets ready, understanding how someone prepare for their golf, for a golf game, to me, or even what what do they find interesting? What keeps them going? What motivates them? What drives them? What are some of the drivers for them, to keep playing golf? And I think for me, that's always so much more interesting because I'm always more interested in the storytelling, because you can tell someone a bunch of technical stuff, or at least I think you could tell someone a bunch of technical stuff, but a story stays with that person. And, I think I really appreciate the storytelling part. All right. We have 3 more questions and then we're going to wrap up. It says, so those last few questions are about golf culture and growth of the game. And the question is, what do you think golf needs to do to attract a younger and more diverse audience? Well, first of all, this I have a really big gripe with. I think this idea of paying for half a cart is, ridiculous, right? Because a lot of people, find it challenging to get into golf because they think it's super expensive. And when you go to a course, you paying $18 for half of a cart, right? And the other person is paying $18 for half the other half. That's ridiculous to me. And also, too, it's like, there are some golf courses that do that. Like if you're not taking the cart, they don't charge you for it. But other golf courses, they charge you anyway, whether you want to take a cart or not. So I definitely think that's one aspect, like the price, the cost of getting on the golf course sometimes can be a little bit challenging and keep people away from it. And I think that's important. I would say fashion, but there has been a whole big debate or conversation around fashion and what people are wearing. And I think more and more, as you can see with the professionals, like the fashion is changing to more contemporary time, to more times of like, people wearing joggers, people wearing no collared shirt, because at the end of the day, I think like most golfers, in fact, 100% of the people that I've been around, golfers respect the game. So if somebody cannot afford to get like a polo shirt or cannot afford to wear slack or, spike shoes, whatever, that doesn't mean that they don't respect the game or they shouldn't get onto the course to play the game, or there should be an issue, right? So to me, like make the game more accessible, remove all this craziness, because what I find is that before you get onto the course, right, you'd meet those people who are quote unquote purist, oh, this or that. But once you get onto the course, most of the time, we are all shooting the same way. We are all striking the ball the same way. And you forget what the other person is wearing because you're focused on your ball. You're focused on making par, making birdies, right? You're focusing on avoiding double bogeys. And what someone is wearing becomes so irrelevant that I think, allowing people to just get on the course and play at a reasonable price makes a world of difference. Let's see. What's your take on golf's relationship with social media and influencers? Well, I think influencers are important, right, in golf. And to me, I appreciate people sometimes that gives me a different perspective onto the game, right? So influencers, they allow you to see yourself a lot of time in the game, right? So like when I watch a guy like Roger Steele, right? I see him how he's progressing. I see he talks about his family. He talks about camaraderie, the connection he has with other golfers. To me, that's very encouraging, and I think that's super important. And especially in the way that we consume, media, social media is a good way, right? I may be having a tough time. In fact, I remember I was having a really tough time or a tough day. And then I got home, I opened Instagram and I see this guy, he was saying golf is the only sport that you're excited to go to, but then on your way back, you may be crying. Like you go to the gym, you find it annoying, you don't really, you're not really excited about it. But on your way home, you're like, man, I'm so glad I did that. And sometimes golf is the complete opposite in that you may be super excited. Yeah, I'm going to have a great golf. And then on your way home, you're close to crying. You're almost in tears. So for me, I think, social media plays a big part. Influencers plays a big part. And of course, influencers are messengers, right? There are things that I didn't know about an influencer shared with me. There are fashion trends, right, that I didn't know about, and I picked it up from an influencer. So I think it's super important and all that stuff. Okay, final question. How do I see golf evolving over the next decade? Well, I don't know that I'm in a position to even answer that question. I think one thing that I could say, though, even though I'm not crazy about the TGL, but I do see golf simulator, like playing in front of a simulator, doing that, I see that exploding all around because I imagine that they could keep costs low and people could play together from different places. It could become like a video game where people play Call of Duty, different games, with people from across the world at different stage of the game. And I think that's going to be a great thing, even though I'm a hater when it comes to the TGL, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be, something that will thrive because a lot of people may really enjoy being indoor in a climate control room and, having fun with their friends. It's way better. Hopefully it will cost less than, Top Golf. But I think the game, people, that'll become the thing in the future, at least in the next decade, at least in my opinion. So that's what it is. All right. Those are all the questions that I got. If you have any other questions that you think I could be addressing, send them to me. DM me, Let's Talk More Action Golf on IG, or email me, Let's Talk More Action Golf at Gmail, so I can answer those questions. So thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk More Action Golf podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. A big shout out to our producer and creative director, Ajane Josepha, for bringing the show to life. And a special thank you to Sid Mac for our fantastic music. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Follow us on social media for the latest update and exclusive content at Let's Talk More Action Golf. I'm your host, Luke Josepha. Until next time, keep swinging easy, and remember, let's talk more action golf.
Life's a maze, keep your head high when you going through it. I saw dead bodies licking the eyes of the living, held back cause you held back from making bigger decisions. We get lost, but this journey comes with us down, that's a given. That's a given. That's a given. We get lost, but the journey comes with us down, that's a given. That's a given.
Let's talk more action golf.